everybody, it's your girl Keisha J. Kelly here with Black College Experience for another episode of What's Going On with Kels Calls the Plays. And tonight, I'm super duper duper excited because I have one of my favorite people, somebody that I've been friends with for quite a while, somebody that's in media, somebody that I absolutely admire, that always does his thing, has been doing his thing for quite a while. And he's, I'm half his size. But I'm not gonna crack jokes all night. I'm gonna let him come on, but I'm gonna see where he is because I see he hadn't logged on just yet. But I am super duper excited again to have Charles Tall Man Edmond, the voice of Alcorn Athletics, Alcorn Sports, coming on. The voice of the Braves. Listen, this man has done so many great things, so many wonderful things for Alcorn, and I'm so excited to hear his story. I know last year he won an award for it, so he's a really great broadcaster. And again, he's, maybe a little bit taller than me. We ain't nowhere near the same height, but I am super excited to bring him on. So let me see where he is. Let's see. Y'all know how things go. But so before he comes on, while we're waiting for him to join us, let's get into some of this right now. We got SWAC basketball that's getting ready to load. It is getting real hot and heavy over in the SWAC on both men and women's side. Looks like the tall man has entered the chat. I thought his head was outside of the frame because he's so tall, but it's not. So again, it's getting hot and heavy down here in the SWAC. It's weird, like in the last couple of weeks of it, in the stretch of it. Listen, anything can happen. I always say the season is always great, but when we go into the tournaments, anybody can get hot. Shout out to Coach Don Thornton over at Alabama A&M, man. They are on just a magnificent winning streak. They are doing their doggone thing. Shout out to Alcorn. Listen, the Lady Braves have come in and they stinging people. They're in the number 2. And then, of course, my Southern University Lady Jaguars are in at number 3. But I won't delay it. We'll come back and talk about those guys, maybe. But shout out to the women. Y'all know how I feel about the women's basketball. But before we get into women's basketball, we definitely got to go over to the SIAC. Shout out to the SIAC doing their doggone thing. They're wrapping it up the first weekend of March. We'll take it over tomorrow, so we'll get some great coverage. I've had a chance to cover Clark Atlanta all season, Morehouse. So it's going to be great to see what happens. And it's very dominant. It's going to be close. But I won't delay it. I'm going to bring Charles on here so Charles can tell us all about his journey and how he became the voice of Alcorn Athletics. Let's see where Charles is.
Hey.
There he is.
Hey.
Well, see, he fits the frame, but the A is cut off at the bottom. You can see the A is cut. See, he got to either sit up or sit down.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So when he sit up, his head too big for the screen. See?
How about that? Will that work?
How tall are you, Charles, before we even start?
Well, I'll let you do the math. I'm 5'24".
Yeah, that's not my strong suit.
5 feet 24 inches. So 12 inches is a foot. 24 inches is 2 feet. So 5 plus 2 is 7. I'm 7 feet.
No, really?
Yes, ma'am. I am.
Wow. Okay. I never knew that. I really never knew that.
I think I told you that, Keisha.
I never asked.
Yeah, I think you did ask at one of the football media days. I think we did talk about it.
Wow.
Or you inquired about it.
Okay. Okay, 7 feet, and here I am being 4'11". So y'all see that we're nowhere near the same height, like nowhere near close. But anyway, thank you so much, Charles, for joining me tonight. Just to talk about you being the voice of Alcorn, everything Alcorn, you do so well in what you do. And I followed your journey for so long, but for people And I'm gonna say people that don't, because everybody know who you are. I mean, you're kind of hard to miss. You're hard to miss. You're everywhere. But I do want to just go into your journey, so you can tell us a little bit about yourself and start with, where did it all begin?
It began when I was probably 10 or 11 years old. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and I grew up as a radio person, as someone that listened to sports more so than watching sports. So I listened to talk radio in St. Louis. Of course, we got a pro baseball team, St. Louis Cardinals. We had a pro football team. We don't now, but it was the St. Louis Cardinals, the Big Red. Hockey, the St. Louis Blues, the St. Louis Steamers pro indoor soccer team. So anything sports related, I was mostly listening to it more so than watching it. So when I was listening to sports and listening to play-by-play, I'm like, wow, that's something I would really like to get into. And so I was listening to folks and doing play-by-play, and I knew a few people, kind of growing up, and someone said, look, if you want to get into this, the first thing you need to do is get your tape recorder. And at that time, we were using tape recorders, and take it to an event and call a game. So I have cousins that at the time, they're younger than me, that played football. And I remember taking a tape recorder to my cousin's game and just talking into it, and I was sounding like a squeaky wheel. And so from that moment on, I'm like, wow. And then I got into journalism a little bit. We had what was called NABJ, had these workshops in St. Louis on Saturday mornings from like 8 to 12. I took a part in those and listened to other people that were in the business. And just over a period of time, I started doing a little bit in high school, did a little PA in high school. And that's how getting behind the microphone just kind of took off. And then once I got to Grambling, I'm a Grambling graduate. They had a mass comm department, and I just started working at the campus radio station. I was, doing stuff at the radio station. I didn't do sports at first, but I got into radio. So I wanted to be on radio. So I got into radio, college radio, and then it just kind of blossomed from there. I did a little PA for Grambling when I was a student. And the last couple of years, I did a little bit of football, mainly men's and women's basketball, and a little bit of baseball. The New York Yankees played the Grambling Tigers at Grambling one year, and I did a little bit of baseball. And so that's how the whole, radio thing and broadcasting deal got started for me. And just doing it, just being around, living at the radio station. When I was in school, Keisha, I lived at the radio station. On Sunday mornings when they were playing gospel, I was at the radio station. And so that's kind of how that's kind of how you do it. And then my opportunity at Alcorn was kind of a lucky break. I was doing basketball with a guy that passed away recently named Larry Gibson, who was a longtime PA announcer for Grambling. I remember him telling me, he said, man, there may be an opportunity at Alcorn to do play-by-play, because Larry did a couple of Alcorn games back when I was in school. And he said there may be an opportunity open. And this was October of my senior year. I graduated in May. And he said, I'll keep you posted. And in the spring, he told me, hey, the job has come open. This is who you need to contact. I contacted that person. I sent in an application, and I got an interview. The interview at Alcorn was the day after I graduated from college. I graduated from college in May of 91. The next day, I had to come to Alcorn State University for an interview. And a couple of days later, I was hired, and I started a couple of weeks later, and I've been here ever since.
Wow. And I truly did not know that. Like, I really did not know. Wow. Wow.
It was luck. I mean, look, it's a blessing. Of course, there's always a divine power in this thing. And it was luck. It was just truly luck that I was able to do this, because, my senior year in college, there was no guarantee that I was going to get a job in this profession. And I was preparing for that. I was, for 4 summers, I worked at the post office. I was a what they call a casual worker. I was a part-time person at the post office. Because to be quite honest, one of my dreams, and as crazy as it sounds, one of my dream jobs was to be a mailman. My uncle was a mailman. And there's just something about the mail guy coming up and delivering your mail and you're talking to customers, and it was something that just really intrigued me, as crazy as that sounds. So I was preparing to try to do that, and I worked at the post office, so maybe I could do this full time. But you got to take the postal test, and so a story behind that. October of '90, my uncle said, "Look, they're offering the postal test. You need to come and take it." And of course, I didn't know anything about the Alcorn thing at the time, so I'm just trying to figure out what just trying to get myself lined up in terms of what I was going to do when I graduated. So I drove to St. Louis, took the postal test. So I asked, I said, "Well, when are you going to know how you did on the postal test?" And they said, "Well, the higher the score, the sooner they'll call you." That was 30 some years ago. I hadn't heard from the post office. So I must not have done well on the postal test. So there went that dream. Of course, now you can get on now, but that was kind of a thing of mine. The military, my uncle was in the Navy. I tried to at least explore the military. The Navy people told me I was too tall. I wear a size 18. They weren't gonna make an 18 boot for me. Uniforms. So I was trying to figure things out at the time, but it was a blessing that I got this opportunity to do what I love to do, what I went to school for, and just expanding this from radio, because I'm a radio guy. This right here is something just still new to me, being in front of a camera, whether it's a computer camera or a TV camera. This stuff is still new to me. It still gives me a little jitters because I don't think I have a TV presence or a camera presence to me. And so this is all just, I'm still figuring this thing out. And your buddy Carlos Brown told me years ago, you need to transition from radio to this because this is where it's going. And so I appreciate him staying on me about it. And I'm getting used to it, but still, all this stuff is totally new. But the radio part, being behind the mic without being seen, that's something that's something I've always wanted to do.
And I think it is a lot of times, a lot of people say, I can do it. And I often laugh at that because I echo that. A lot of times I would say, yeah, it's easier on radio because they can't see us. They can only hear us. They can't see us. And so when you got to be on front of the screen, I'm one of those. I got to have on lipstick, like lipstick and earrings. That's like my thing. Got to have on lipstick, earrings, and my hair has to hang down in some weird way, shape, form, or fashion so I don't look like a boy. That's just my thing. But it is. And I think with radio, TV, everything, streaming, everything is so forward moving, and it's just moving so fast. So did you play sports?
No, I didn't, Keisha. And I get this question asked every single.
Did you play basketball?
No, I didn't. I did not. And so if there was a slight regret, I'm 58. If there's a slight regret, I didn't get more into it. But my father passed away several years ago. He introduced me to the game. He took me to the playground. And I think as I was 6'7", 6'8", coming up through high school. My father was an assistant principal at a high school. I went to school at that school. And I think there were people kind of telling him, hey, your son could be a heck of a basketball player. And so I think I know he took me to the playground, introduced me to the game. He did everything as a father he was supposed to do. But I wasn't interested. And I've heard people say, man, if I was your father, I would have forced you to do that. He didn't force me. It just wasn't something I was interested in. I was interested in being around sports, but not necessarily playing basketball. I had a medical issue growing up where I couldn't play football. But I do, I've played racquetball and tennis and handball. I've done those things, trying to stay as active as I can. But the basketball thing, no. It's something that I did not do, wasn't interested in. And, I love to call basketball. I love it. But did I screw up an opportunity to probably make a whole bunch of money? Yeah, I did. But at the same time, this is what I wanted to do. And could I be rich and happy or rich and unhappy? Probably. There's a guy that played in the NBA named Marcus Mann, who was one of the best SWAC basketball players back in the day. And he made money in the NBA, and then he left abruptly because of whatever reason. And he's doing ministry and other stuff, and he's happy with that. So, it's what makes you happy, and this makes me happy. I'm just blessed and fortunate to be able to do it. And yeah, it's people are saying that it's a shame that you wasted that opportunity. Yeah, but there's other things that you could do, and I think divine intervention has said that, hey, this is what you want to do. I'm having you here. and this is where I am.
Yeah, I think we always tend to end up where we're supposed to be. And so the fact that you said, and it's funny because even when I remember some years ago interviewing Tiffany Green, and I remember her having the conversation of she wasn't always in radio either. I want to say she might have said something with maybe car dealership or something or something centered around that. And just to see how amazing she is now. And so when you say I didn't play sports, that's one thing. And you said you initially didn't start out in sports. It was just radio, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So just to see how you've branched into it and how much you've grown in it is just amazing to see. And then the fact that you've been there, like you said, 32 years.
Yeah, got arrived in June 4th, 1991 at 8:03 a.m. That's when I clocked in. I can tell you the day, I can tell you exact time that I punched in. So it's been what, June will be 35 years doing this for Alcorn. And believe it or not, I'm kind of the youngster when it comes to broadcasters in the state of Mississippi. David Kellum, who calls Ole Miss's games, been doing it over 40 years. Guy that calls USM, and these are all my mentors, John Cox, who calls USM's games. He's been doing it over 40 years. So I'm still the new kid on the block as far as Mississippi is concerned. But just being a part of this league, there's been a number of people that have kind of paved the way for me that, without them, I don't think I would be here, just in terms of how you treat your other radio cohorts that come on campus, and just trying to be gracious and just try to treat them right, because you want to be treated right when you go on the road. And so, there's been a number of people that have helped me along the way and still are helping me. I'm nowhere complete. And so I've just got to keep your nose to the grindstone and keep on working with this. And I enjoy it. And I do high school football too for Vicksburg High here in Vicksburg. I've been doing that. I've been doing high school football since I think 93 or 94. Jefferson County High School in Fayette. Then transitioned when I moved to Vicksburg High. So I do that on Friday nights and then Alcorn on Saturdays. So that's something else, Keisha, that got me in awe. When I was listening and growing up, there were broadcasters that would call the Missouri Tiger games on Saturday. And then they call the St. Louis Cardinal games on Sunday. So I'm listening to Bill Wilkerson, who passed away a few years ago, who called the Mizzou games on Saturday in Lincoln, Nebraska. You turn the radio on Sunday, he's in East Rutherford, New Jersey, calling the Cardinals and the Giants. Like, how in the world did he get there? And so that's just something I've wanted to do. So I do Vicksburg on Fridays, Alcorn on Saturdays. We're on the road half the night sometimes. But that's just something that I've wanted to do, and just being blessed and having that opportunity.
It's indeed, because we know how hard it is to get into this industry. And I'm going to dive into that a little bit later on. But, after the inspiration to pursue, why HBCU athletics?
Why didn't you say that again now?
So after, the inspiration was there to get into, radio and broadcast, but why HBCU athletics? Why was it that you pursued HBCUs?
Oh, okay. Well, my father was a Grambling grad. And so coming out of high school, I wanted to go to one of the best broadcasting schools in the country at that time, which was the University of Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, they, along with Syracuse, and Syracuse still is one of the better broadcasting schools in the country. But coming out of high school, I was not a great student. My grades were average at best, and some days were good, some days were bad. So I wanted to go to the University of Missouri. My mother wouldn't let me, and I didn't have the grades to go. So I was trying to find a place to go to college, and I went to Grambling on a visit. My father took me down on a Thursday night during football season, when Grambling played South Carolina State on national television. And after checking out Eddie Robinson Stadium and just the atmosphere, the press box, the communications department, all of that, I was sold on Grambling. Now, maybe sold by choice, because that probably was the only place that was going to accept me. And at the time, Grambling had an open admissions policy. So they were going to accept you no matter if you had a 4.0 or a 1.4. They were going to accept you. And I got accepted, and hey, had a great communications department. I still am fond of it. Great radio station, TV department. So that's how I got to Grambling. You know, I probably didn't have anywhere else to go. I don't think anybody was going to accept me with the grades I had, especially at that time. So, I mean, it was just by stumble and fumble and circumstance. I wound up at Grambling. My father took me. That's where I wanted to go. Maybe not by choice, but hey, it was the best decision I could have made, and it was really the only option at the time.
Okay. So now, do you remember your very first broadcast?
Oh, wow.
Now, you remember when you clocked in, so you got to remember the first broadcast.
At Alcorn, yes. Okay, at Alcorn. I remember my very first broadcast at Alcorn.
Okay.
Was at Independence Stadium in Shreveport.
Right. Okay.
Alcorn used to play Grambling in Shreveport every year, whether it was Alcorn's home game or Grambling's home game. We played that game in Shreveport every year. And my first broadcast, I was nervous as heck.
Yeah, take us down. Yeah, this is what I want to hear. Take us down this journey.
Well, being the new kid on the block, of course, you know, the team's supposed to take care of you and have a hotel room for you and all that. The team didn't have a room for me. My first game, I wound up sleeping on the floor of a friend that I met that works with one of our affiliates, who's an Alcornite. I wound up sleeping on the floor in his hotel room. So that was first crazy little bit of stuff there. But I remember I had a little analog mixer, little 2-channel analog mixer plugged into a phone line. And that's how we did games at the time on the phone. And I didn't have a crowd mic. So I'm calling the game in a booth without a crowd mic. So you don't hear the crowd. And so that was crazy. I mean, I think about it now, like, why did I even do that? I should have found a way to run a cable somewhere, but I was young, I was raw, I didn't know any better. But as it turns out, in that game, we struggled, and a guy by the name of Steve McNair came off the bench. And from that moment on, you got to know about Steve McNair little by little. Steve McNair coming in off the bench, helping us beat Grambling. The next week, we played Alabama A&M at the Cotton Bowl. Texas Stadium. We played them at Texas Stadium. And so that you know, my first broadcast, it was crazy, but it was exhilarating. And my first Alcorn game, I'll never forget it. It was just, I was wondering, what am I doing? I'm sleeping on somebody's floor in a hotel. I mean, the team didn't have a room for me. I don't know if it was budgetary reasons or what. I don't know. And I really didn't care because I was doing what I like to do. So the circumstances I didn't care for. And so I just wanted to do the game. And I did. And, you know, just kind of took off from there.
Now, do you have a favorite sport in particular? Basketball, baseball, football, any particular sport?
I really like basketball. Of course, I didn't play as deeply as I should have, but I like basketball. Football, of course, you can't go wrong with football. But baseball, I would say my favorite sport is baseball. Just the nuances of it. Baseball's kind of slow, especially in this conference where pitching is a struggle. You know, when you play Mississippi State, game is 2 hours and 4 minutes. But when you're playing in the SWAC, a SWAC baseball game could be 4 hours and 4 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's just the nuances of baseball. Mm-hmm. I grew up listening to baseball. Before I really listened to football, I listened to baseball. A guy by the name of Jack Buck, who's passed away, is a Hall of Famer. Joe Buck, who does games for ESPN, that's his son. And so that's how I got into listening to Jack Buck call baseball games. So baseball really was my number one passion, but football, I mean, football's right there, 1 and 1A.
So now that you have, and of course, football is everybody's go-to. What makes working for Alcorn, what makes that so special? Like if you could have any other school, and I'm just saying just randomly, but what makes it so special working for Alcorn?
It's just the people. I mean, you know, it's like a family. When people say it's a family environment, it is. Now, it took me a while, Keisha, for people to get used to me and vice versa. Now, I was a 23-year-old dumb kid from St. Louis, Missouri, calling Alcorn's games, and I was a Grambling grad, and that took a while for some people at Alcorn to. Seriously, it took a while for some of the old heads at Alcorn to get used to it. Some never really did, and so the family atmosphere, the way the alums kind of warmed up to me, and vice versa. It took a little while for that, but for some of the old heads at the time, some of them are no longer with us. It was a struggle. It was a struggle because like this dude is an Alcorn grad, I mean a Grambling grad calling Alcorn games. Like that doesn't make any sense. But we've moved on since that in today's time. But back then, those old heads, if you weren't an Alcornite, it took a while for them to warm up to you. But seriously, it took a little while. But the Alcorn family has been great to me and great to my family. I would have it no other way. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for some of them. People that call the games with me, got introduced to them. Because when I got to Alcorn, I didn't have a color guy. I was doing play-by-play, and I was told you need to find your color guy. And so one of the guys on campus told me, you need to talk to a guy named Emmanuel Barnes. I didn't know Emmanuel Barnes from Barnes Emmanuel. I had no idea who he was. I introduced myself to him, and I used to go to his house on Sundays and watch football because he loves football. Got to know his family, and kind of the rest is history with that. And so that family atmosphere, that warm feeling, that warm and fuzzy feeling, they took that for me, and I'm very gracious for that.
So now, everybody has their style. You had to go find, and this is so funny because you had to now you got people just trying. You had to literally go find somebody. How do you keep you engage your listeners? And everybody has a style. What's your style, and how do you use your style to engage listeners?
I just call the game. I just call it like I see it, but I also provide information in terms of just getting to know the players and the coaches. I've learned over the years, people want to hear stories about the coach or stories about players. And I was just calling a game and just calling a game. And I think after a while, I got to realize, and just watching other games and listening to other games, a part of it is storytelling too. Mm-hmm. So, having the opportunity to not only work with the team, travel with the team. I was on for probably 25 years, I was on the bus with the team. So of course you learn so much about players just being on these long bus trips. And so that allowed me to get to know the coaches. That allowed me to get to know the players, and you're sharing some of those stories in your broadcast. So for me, entertainment, but I think stories are there too. And then people want to know what's going on. And that's a constant challenge now. And because of the fact that people are saying it now because games are being streamed, but still you have those folks that still like to listen. Some people like to watch the game and listen to your broadcast. I've heard that before, and a lot of broadcasters shoot that out there. But for me, my style is just calling the game. Call what you see, insert stories, insert information, getting to know people in the conference and have conversations about that while intertwining that in your broadcast. Like right now, we're coming down the stretch of SWAC basketball, right? The standings, what they are, there's a bunch of tiebreakers tied in there. And so you intertwine that where the Lady Braves are, as far as the standings are concerned. You talk about what they did against Jackson State, the first go round. We playing them Saturday. What happened there and where we are in the standings. A&M has a tiebreaker on it, so you kind of intertwine that because people don't keep up with it like that. So a part of it is just continuing to inform and educate folks in terms of where your team or Alcorn is or other teams. I think people like that because they don't follow it like that. We follow football, of course, but we don't follow SWAC basketball from the first week of November when the season starts. People are now starting to catch on to it now. NFL season's over with. NBA is what you just had the All-Star. So people are kind of catching up with SWAC basketball right now. So that's kind of what I do, try to help people catch up on what's going on in the SWAC. Or even with football, people follow it from the beginning. But I try to educate, inform, entertain. That's kind of my style. I kind of mix it all together. And I think if if you're talking and telling a bunch of jokes without calling the game, then people are gonna say something anyway. But you just try to give a little bit of everything in your calls and doing games, and that's what I try to do.
And much to your point, we know everybody loves football. That's the thing. And I try to get people to my hashtag, my saying is all sports matter. I truly believe that, because as long as you got a student playing a sport that's on a scholarship is important. I don't care what the sport is. And so the thing is that I think it's very important for us to like support these student athletes, not just when they win. And like don't start when we get into conference play. Like, you got some really heavy games that have happened with these teams that like it's undeniable. Like, some of these we did not expect to be where they are. And I said, Coach Thorne is on a revenge tour. Alcorn is on a revenge tour, because they remember what happened last year. And so we're seeing this play out every week. And so it's like, yeah, we're in the thick of it. Like, we're going down the stretch of basketball now, but it's been some really great basketball from week to week to week. And as we see, you know, Bethune-Cookman, the men, they're playing very heavy, but we seen Jackson State beat them the other night. So it's so many things that are going on that can happen. And it's just like, once we get to SWAC, like to the tournaments, anything can happen. So much to your point, like you said, you mix it up and you do. You keep them informed, because a lot of people don't. You know, people can catch football, but you know, basketball they don't. And Lord have mercy, bless your heart with baseball, because you know that's 9 innings of stuff. But yep. It's really important, and I really appreciate, because a lot of I do like, I'll follow a lot of what y'all saying. I'm like, oh, okay. And then if I got a question, I just text Mo. I don't care if Mo is on broadcast. I'm texting him. Charles Bishop. I don't care if y'all are on broadcast. If I ever text, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But it is a lot of times people just don't know, and just to hear the information along with the entertainment is so professional, and it works out well.
Yeah, I mean, even when you talked about baseball. Baseball started this week,
right?
At some point, basketball is going to come to an end. And
correct.
So you transition into baseball.
Correct.
Our baseball team beat Jackson State the other day for the first time in several years. I think 2019 was the last time we beat Jackson State at baseball. Time. And so second year coach Carlton Hardy, almost 30 new players. So at some point, I'm working on baseball on the side, knowing that we're full board into basketball. But at some point, basketball is going to end. Season
right.
end. And so now you're transitioning to baseball and softball. So you want to get caught up to speed on those sports. So when you get into it feet and hand first, you already know your players, you already know your coach, new assistant coaches, and things like that. So it's a constant moving of the chess pieces. And that's what keeps me busy. It's a 9-month process.
Yes.
It's all the way to May.
Yeah.
And then you got a good month in June, but then in July, SWAC football media days, the third week of July. So you, out of 12 months, there's about 3.5 good weeks where you just unwind, but then you can't unwind too loosely because you got to get right back into it. So
you do. And then Lord forbid you got coaching changes and early signing day. It's so much. It's and somebody was asking me, they was like, oh, so you transition, you went straight into basketball. I said, yeah, we go straight into basketball. Then you go into baseball, softball. I said, it's like you said, it's like chess. It's always moving pieces. It never stops.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what keeps me busy. And that's when May rolls around, there's a little bit of exhaustion because it's like, wow, it's over with for right now. But in this conference, the SWAC used to be kind of boring in a sense in which there used to be not a lot of storylines. But now it's like every week, even in the off season, there's stuff to talk about. And that's great. Football media day. I remember back in the day in which they had like 5 or 6 tables for the press. Now they've got a ton of tables in 3 rooms where you have your podcast, you got your Radio Road, you got a lot of stuff going on with that, where it used to be it was just a handful of tables. So that just shows you the amount of media coverage, the expanded media coverage that we have in this conference. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. We're just like these other conferences where it's storylines, good, bad, drama, coaching changes in the middle of the stream.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you just, and that's great. I mean, here at Alcorn, we've had turnover. Our baseball coach in the second year, softball coach, our football coach Cedric Thomas in his third year. Second year, Jake Morton. The first year, Jake Morton, basketball coach. So there's a lot here too. And so, but every school, I think, for those who cover each school, you got a lot of people that cover each and every one of our schools. There's a lot to talk about, and I think that's a good thing. Being informed, try to be professional, try to be credible, and because that's the new thing now, Keisha, with this stuff. I mean, I'm so worried about the credibility piece. People are doing these things, these podcasts, but the filter, the credibility, the professionalism. I'm kind of worried about some of that stuff because without that, you don't have the clicks and likes, and then you won't have a show after a while. I'm just worried about some of that because as we phase into this new landscape of social media, podcasts, and shows as compared to the TV stuff and the radio stuff.
And that is so true. And another thing, I've always lived by, I don't have to be first, but I have to be accurate. Correct. And we know one of the worst things to do is have to recant. You do not want to have to recant and retract what you said, because once it's in the atmosphere, it's in the atmosphere. And this, I think I always go back to what Keisha said, Charles said, and that's why I'm always like, okay, a lot of times, so many times, and we both probably can say yes this, well, we know something has happened. We know a coaching change is coming. We know somebody's coming. We know a lot of these things, but you just sit on it. I have no desire to always announce something, to break news and be first. I just don't. And I'm like, the worst thing to do is to announce somebody else's news before they announce their news, or something happens and now you got to go back and it's already out there. So, a lot of people, it's the shock value that, they look for the clicks and likes. And a lot of times, more times than not, as Black media, it's our job to handle the situation. We create the narrative. And a lot of times we do not do what we need to do. A lot of times we don't, the due diligence, like we control the narrative. We're the first person, the face of whatever the story is. And so it's up to us to tell the story in the best possible way. And sometimes it's like the teach moment gets out of there. Like you gotta go with your best judgment. You just have to.
I agree with that. And the thing is, one thing for me, you don't want to do is you don't want to ruin your credibility with your sources. I know people here at Alcorn State University, I don't want to ruin, even though I work for the university, that doesn't mean my credibility is 1,000%. What I'm saying is that if you screw it up with your athletic director or your president or your vice president, that's trouble. And so, talking with people in the SWAC, at the SWAC office, Dr. McClellan, Andrew Roberts in the SWAC office, you ruin that credibility, you're in trouble. I mean, I'm doing games for SWAC during the softball tournament and been doing the baseball with them for a while, and I don't want to ruin my credibility with the SWAC office. I don't want to ruin credibility with people that I know. I know AD Ashley Robinson when he played ball at Valley. I know him. I know a bunch of ADs. I know a bunch of people, and you don't want to ruin your credibility with them, because without them, you're in trouble. You have nothing to hang your hat on. You have nothing to get information from. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is protecting your people, protecting your sources, protecting your credibility, because once that's damaged, it's probably no turning back for some. Some might forgive but won't forget. And even for you, Keisha, what you do, I mean, stuff with the Atlanta Dream and the roller derby stuff and the NFL stuff. I mean, you're at a higher platform where you're with professional organizations. You do stuff with the Legacy Bowl and the NFL. I mean, you run your credibility with those folks, and you want to go to that next step. I think that you don't want that. So that's the thing for me. That's what I watch out for. That's what I try to be professional in that and try to help people with that. Because I've seen a bunch of shows with just a lot of stuff and without a lot of teeth into it. I don't say anything about it. If I have an opportunity to help someone with that, I will. But you just got to slow down sometimes. And I think we're so quick to do stuff and put stuff out there. Sometimes you do more harm than good. And that's kind of where that's where I'm worried about right now. And I just hope people just slow down sometimes. But that's not the world we're in, though. I can say it, but that's not the world we're in. We're in for quick right now. If it's wrong, we'll come back and fix it. But sometimes you can't.
And that's true. A lot of people don't think about the relationships and the sabotage. And I think that's one of the things that I stand heavy on. Like when you talk about not only the universities, but when you talk about these conferences, like you got to go back to the conference. That's kind of like going back to the president. You got to go back to the conference at some point. And I'm the same way. I don't want to ruin any relationship that I have with a conference office, with an athletic director, with a sports information director, no matter who it is, coaches or whatever. I don't have those kind of problems. And I was like, I just have no desire to be on their bad side. I just don't. I can work with anybody. I just don't have that desire. And a lot of times we see in this, and I'm going to say around 2019, 2020, is where we seeing that, the rise of more shows, more podcasts, so on and so forth. I don't have a problem with any of those. I truly don't. I just have a problem with, I'm an unbiased person. I'm very unbiased when I report stuff. Southern can lose, and I'm gonna still have to report Southern loss. That's not gonna change the game. It's not gonna change. But when you don't have a balance in what you do, just go be a beat writer is what I always say. Go write for the school. That way you can just talk about the school. You can't say I'm for all HBCUs and you're not talking about all HBCUs. But I think a lot of times, we get lost into it. So that was going to be my next question. How do you keep it where you're not biased about certain things? Because you went to grad, that I did ask you that. I didn't know you graduated from Grambling. I remember that conversation.
Yeah.
But how do you keep it at that? I graduated from Grambling, but I work for Alcorn.
It was hard at first.
Mm-hmm.
People were ragging me about it at first. And so there was a few times in which when Alcorn played Grambling, people were listening a little bit more attentively in terms of the tone of my voice when Grambling scored a touchdown as compared to Alcorn scoring a touchdown. And this would only happen when Grambling would play Alcorn. Whether it's football, basketball, baseball, softball, it didn't matter. Grambling versus Alcorn, everybody's antennas were up early in my tenure at Alcorn. Like, all right, now you know who's paying your light bill. It's not Grambling, it's Alcorn. I used to hear that a lot. But over a period of time, I was settling in. And look, I know where I work. I got to pay my, I got bills like everybody else. It's okay, but that takes time. That just does not happen in a snap of a finger. It takes time, just doing games and being aware, self-conscious, and aware of the fact that, hey, yes, your school is playing Alcorn or whatever the case is and how that works, but you do have to settle yourself down. Now, outside of Alcorn Grambling, when Grambling's playing Stephen F. Austin, hey, I'm pulling for Grambling. Without Grambling, there's no Charles Edmond. They gave me an opportunity where no other school was going to give me an opportunity. I couldn't have gone to any school coming out of high school with my lack of academic success. No other school was going to give me an opportunity. I will say that. But Grambling did, and I appreciate what Grambling has done. I didn't care about the dorms, Keisha. I didn't care about the cafeteria food. That's true. I didn't really care. I was just happy to be on somebody's campus because I don't think I could have. So I appreciate what Grambling did, and without them, there would be no Charles Edmond. So yeah, I was Grambling from 86 to 91, but when I transitioned to Alcorn, I got to keep it real when Alcorn and Grambling play. But the old coaches would get on my case like, man, hey man, that you better be pulling for Alcorn when they play Grambling. I'm listening to you, I'm watching you, and so. For about 10 years that happened, but over a period of time, you get to know the coaches and they realize that, hey, I'm all about the purple and gold. And that just slowly went away. But I was catching hell, Keisha. I really was on that. But I didn't disrespect anybody. I understood it. I got it. And that just makes those rivalries. I learned the passion of the rivalries. I learned the passion of Alcorn-Jackson State rivalry. Still learning it. I learned the passion of Alcorn and Southern rivalry. Still learning it. Alcorn Valley. I'm still learning because some of the old heads would talk about these stories with Jerry Rice and Totten and Alcorn and Valley at Memorial Stadium. And So I'm still learning that. But as far as listening attentively and thinking that I'm gonna cheer more for my alma mater, I'm on the radio. I've learned that lesson, and I'm still conscious because there are people that are still, they're still in that world, still alive today, that still pay attention to it. But I'm a lot more aware of it now.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm born and raised Huntsville, Alabama, and so I grew up on the campus of Alabama A&M. But I went to Southern University. I graduated from Southern University, and so again, we always say a house divided because my twin sister graduated from Alabama A&M.
Oh,
So we say it's a house divided. My twin sister could care less about sports. She absolutely does not care. But that's just the way we do it. And then my nephew, which is her son, he graduated from Tennessee State. So when they play, I go with it. And I was like, I have no dog in the fight, but I'm gonna stir it up. Tennessee State against Alabama A&M. But it is. It's just like we just had this whole thing going on. And I was like, yeah, y'all first right now and all this stuff. And she was like, oh, okay. It's like no big deal to her at all. None whatsoever. Like she'll talk about Magic City Classic, but anything else, she's like whatever. But it's interesting because I do the same thing. I try to keep the balance. I don't. When Southern wins, Southern wins. When Southern lose. And I try to keep the balance. Now, as much as I give them all the drama when they lose, I'm gonna give them all the praise when they win too. Yep. So I'm like, the way I can talk about you with a L, I'm definitely gonna give you all the glory if you win. I'm definitely gonna give it to you. So I respect because they're still. I always say they're still kids. They're still kids. They're all still kids. So I respect them all the same way. Now, is there just one particular interview that you can say was your favorite? And I know it's been a lot.
I would say, well, two.
Okay.
Of course, the Seattle Seahawks won the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And the Seattle Seahawks on the defensive side was coached by Leslie Frazier.
Nice.
Leslie Frazier is an Alcorn grad.
Right.
A couple of years ago, Leslie Frazier came to a football game, and I got a chance to interview Leslie Frazier. He was just in the press box talking to different people. And I got a chance to interview Leslie Frazier, and that was a real enjoyable experience. I saw him on TV when he was at Buffalo and just bounced Minnesota, and so that was a really, really fun interview to do with him. It was, I think, at the half, and so I really enjoyed that interview. And then there's an interview on YouTube that I did with Steve McNair that still makes the rounds. It pops up on people's timelines now and again. Steve didn't do many interviews when he was at Alcorn. He just was not that dude. And I remember it took me probably 6 months to get him, even though he was on campus and I was on campus. He just didn't do many interviews. And there's a YouTube video out there of me interviewing Steve, a sit down that's out there still in the cyberspace. And so that was a really good interview because that was my first really opportunity to talk to Steve one-on-one and really just talk with him. And I was nervous as heck. I didn't have long. I remember that, like, say, hey, you don't have long to do this, so let's go ahead and do it. And I did it. And that's the only interview I got a chance to do with him. But it still was a special interview because he didn't do many. Of course, he did a lot the senior year in '94, the Heisman, because he was in the race for the Heisman. But before that, he didn't do a whole lot of interviews. He just wanted to stay in the background, even though he was it. He was the man.
He was the guy.
He was the guy. I mean, I've heard stories. Players get on the bus, and coaches get on the bus, and the coaches take roll call. Coach says, Steve McNair, here. All right, let's pull off. Let's go. That's all we needed was Steve McNair. I mean, that's just, that's a true story. That actually has happened a few times. But because Steve was who we had. He had great pieces around him, though. There's no doubt about that. But Steve McNair, Leslie Frazier were probably my two favorite interviews that I've had an opportunity to do. And that's something, Keisha, that I'm still learning. Interviews. Getting to know the coaches and just knowing their background and knowing their family makes interviewing coaches and doing coaching shows so much easier. You talked about Nate Kilbert and the Lady Braves. I knew Nate Kilbert when he was the coach at Valley. He was the coach at UAPB, and he was an assistant coach here under Shirley Walker. So I got to know Nate for a long time, and and so it's easier to do an interview with someone that you're familiar with. And so I'm getting to know the new coaches that we have, Jake Morton, getting to know him and, figuring him out. And I think once you're comfortable, you can do interviews and talk about anything. And so I think that's the one thing for me. You talked about interviews. They're all my favorite. I enjoy them. I just enjoy having a conversation, because that's what an interview is, just a conversation. You aren't trying to nail them to the wall. You're just trying to talk to them and have a conversation about football, about life, however way it takes you. And I think and it makes you comfortable and it makes them comfortable. And they may share some stuff with you like, wow, I didn't know that. And I think that's what makes these interview pieces good, when you can get them to just relax, let their hair down, and just talk to you. And I think that's something I'm still trying to work on, because it took me a while to figure that out. I'm still trying to figure it out, but it makes interviews more informative.
And I think that's one of the things with me, is always trying to find like something, like that one thing. And a lot of times I remember when I had met Pam Oliver, and that was one of the things that she talked about. And for HBCU grads, whenever we in the room, that's how we connect. That's our one thing. That's the first thing we talk about, is what school we went to. That's just how we connect. And I remember the conversation with her was something like her going to FAMU and I went to Southern. And as all these other people are in the room, as soon as I said that, it was like our whole energy shifted. So then, of course, other people went into the trying to say what school they went into. But that's how I started off the conversation with her. And I remember asking her different things, but one of those things was like doing something different. And she said, always ask them a question that's going to lead them. She said, whether it's about family, it's something that they wouldn't expect, like something away from the game. Yeah. And so when I had the chance to interview Coach Prime, that was the same thing. So, of course, at the time, everybody was asking about his son, asking about him coming to play, what he was going to do, why did he come to Jackson State? My question was simply, well, how did you get the phrase, I believe? And that's when we went into that whole conversation. And then I asked him something else. But my thing was always something. I would ask you something serious about the game, stats, whatever. But the second question would always be something personal. Food, family, something outside of the game. Because if it's 20 of us on a call, 9 times out of 10, 19 people have asked you about the game.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, form, or fashion. And so I think it's more relatable when people see that you know something about them outside of. So now I'm going to be like, yeah, because see, Charles is 7 feet tall. And Charles interviewed Steve McNair when Steve wasn't doing interviews. And it's out there in the atmosphere. And I got to go find it on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, here's a fun fact about Nate Kilbert. You talked about Nate Kilbert, and by the way, I mean, we're all pulling for him to win some sort of hardware, whether regular season title or SWAC tournament title. We've been in the last 2 SWAC championship games, but it's time for Nate Kilbert to hoist a trophy of some sorts. So hopefully we can do that before the season's over with. But did you know?
Y'all notice I didn't say that. That's what Charles said.
I'm saying that. Yeah, I'm throwing a little plug out there. But one of the things about Nate Kilbert, and we joke about this all the time. One thing you will not catch Nate Kilbert on, he hates group texts. Like if you put him on a group text, and I joke with him and I needle him about this all the time, he will not respond. And his wife has confirmed this. He will not, if you put him on a group text, he will not respond. And I'm like, why are you not going to respond? Because he wants to know who he's talking to. And then when, you get on a group text and somebody says, who is this? That drives him crazy. And I joke with him about it. Is so.
I understand. I'm with you, Coach.
Yeah,
I'm with you, Coach.
It is so funny when I bring up a group text. I said, Coach, I'm gonna put you on a group text. He said, you won't hear from me. So that's just one of the things, getting to know him and just talking about stuff like that, sharing stories like that about him and just other coaches too, and just being around him. In the past, being on the bus with him and just learning stuff. And just that's what going to practice is about. That's what going to shoot around is about. That's what going to football practice is about. I mean, of course, you're watching them doing their jobs, but you talk to them and they let their hair down, and you just learn different stuff. And I think that's very important.
Okay, so before we wrap it up, I gotta do it to you like I do everybody else. You gotta get the hot seat. You just gotta tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay, you can't think about it. The first thing that comes to mind. Okay, you ready?
I
It's
guess
not that bad. It's not that bad.
All right.
All right. Oatmeal or cereal?
Cereal.
Wings or flats?
Wings.
Blue cheese or ranch?
Ranch. Definitely not blue cheese.
I should have said drums or flats. I'm sorry.
Drums.
And what did you say? Blue cheese or ranch? What did you say?
Ranch. Definitely not blue. I'm just not. I'm not feeling blue cheese. Never have. Nah.
Coke or Pepsi?
Pepsi.
Summer or fall?
Summer. I hate cold weather. And I'm from St. Louis where we get 2 feet of snow a year, and I hate it.
Baseball or basketball?
Baseball.
Favorite NFL team?
The LA Rams.
Favorite NBA basketball team?
The LA Lakers.
Favorite basketball player?
I like Steph. My favorite, Steph Curry.
It looked like did you have a second one? Because it looked like you had a second one.
I was gonna say it was either Kareem or Magic for number 2, but Steph Curry is just, he's so impressive off the court, and of course what he's doing on the court is spectacular. I'm pulling for him to get Golden State back up there, but Steph is my favorite, and I would say if I had to pick a definite number 2, I was just so mesmerized by the Kareem skyhook growing up. He nailed one in Boston back in the day. I mean, just because he's tall and I'm tall, I'm just fond of that. So I would say Kareem number 2.
Favorite genre of music?
House music. Definitely. 1000%. I was a DJ. I worked at our college radio station, and I was doing gospel and jazz, but I always like to listen to house music, the old Chicago style house. And so house music is my favorite music. As a matter of fact, on my satellite radio, on my truck, channel 54 is probably my favorite channel. And I keep it on there because it's got all the old house and disco. House and disco are my 2 favorite, believe it or not. I mean, as crazy as it sounds. I'm still a Donna Summer fan. Saturday Night Fever is one of my favorite movies. I mean, I'm old, and so I'm dating myself, but I still listen to that stuff, and I enjoy it to this day.
If you didn't go to Grambling, what HBCU would you have chose?
Oh, man.
And you can't choose Alcorn because you work there, so you can't choose Alcorn.
Yeah. I've never been asked that, Keisha. I would probably say Southern University.
Woo!
It's not because I'm talking to a Southern grad. It's just something about Southern University. The fan base, just getting to know the Jaguar Nation. The baseball tournament was at Heinz Field in Baton Rouge for a number of years. And personally, I hate that it ever left because I thought the atmosphere was wonderful. But the Jaguar Nation always treated me well, cooking and crawfish and all that good stuff. And so it was always a friendly environment just going down there. Some of them probably didn't even know I was a Grambling grad. Now I'm saying this out here now, and probably they might have a different opinion of me now, but I always was treated well by the Jaguar Nation. My best friend Carlos Brown's a Southern grad, Carlos. But if I had to go to another school, it would be Southern University if I had my druthers.
Well, we surely appreciate it. Final two questions, or probably final question, then comment. I meant to ask you this early on, but this is I want you to because I know you're humble, you don't talk about yourself a lot. Talk about the award that you won last year.
Oh, the one with Ken
Yeah.
Rashad.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've been some people have said that I'm selfish. Um, and I'm working on that. But it's truly not about me in this journey. I couldn't be where I am if it wasn't for other people kind of opening the doors and laying the pavement for me to walk down. And so you can't do this broadcast stuff by yourself. Mm-hmm. You got to have an engineer at the radio station, a color person, you got to have a sideline person. And it's about them. It's not about me. I mean, yeah, you get the praise for being play-by-play because you're the one doing all the talking or most of it. But without Cedric Tillman, without Emmanuel Barnes, without Jamario Brooks, without those folks behind the scenes, my co-workers at the radio station, it wouldn't be me. And so that's why I just do my thing, and I've just learned that from just seeing how it's not supposed to be done. One of the things about social media, I've only been on social media probably 10 or 11 years. I think it was 2014 when I first got on Facebook, and I didn't set it up. My friend Cedric Tillman set it up for me. He said, man, you need to get on social media. And I was afraid of it. I didn't want anything to do with it. Now I hate that I didn't do it sooner. But one thing that social media has taught me more so what not to do and how not to do things. And so that's, it's not about me. And yeah, I mean, I call the games and I try to be friendly to everybody, but that's the thing about it. So with the award, it's just, I was surprised. I was shocked. And Ken Rashad is my classmate at Grambling. He went to Grambling. And he's done a great job with that with his HBCU sports. As a matter of fact, that's kind of how I got into the blogs and all that from his platform, because I was chiming in on stuff and learning stuff from his page. So with that, he's a part of my development, a big part of it, because I learned a lot from Ken in terms of that. So that's just kind of where I am. I just do my thing. I call the games and try to put people in better positions. And for me, whatever happens. If you get the credit, fine. If you don't, fine. You still got to get up every day and go to work and do your job. And that's just kind of where I am. I've just learned that over the years. So it's not about me. And, I'm learning that because growing up, and I was selfish. And as I've gotten older, I've realized it's not all about you, and so I've done some crazy things. And so that's just where I am on that. So that's as far as the award goes, and being kind of taken aback by it, because if it wasn't for certain people, I wouldn't have had that. So that's why I put them front and center, and it's just not about me. So that's just where I am on it, and I'm just still working on that though. I mean, it's still, people like to be out front, and that's fine, right. But I choose not to, and I know because of what I do, because I'm 7 feet tall, can't be missed. That's something you can't do anything about. But just for me, I want you to get the shine. And hey, I'll come in later on, and whatever I can fill in, I fill in. That's just where I am. I'm just not that person.
And so here's my feedback. As humble as Charles is, I don't care. This was your moment. This was your shine, and I get it. Somebody had to tell me once before, it's okay to take the compliments. It's okay to receive the awards. It's okay, especially when you put in the work, you put in the time and the dedication, and regardless of the people that stood before you and helped you along the way, that's very intentional. That you're giving them all the praise, but still in the same breath, you're the one that's doing the work for 35 years. You're the one that stayed consistent with it. You're the one that continued on. So even though it comes as a surprise, it shouldn't come as a surprise because you've done the work. And, you have the right attitude. You remain humble about it, and you continue to congratulate the people. And I always say, I'm nothing without the people support. I'm nothing without the people that help me. That's how I always look at it in the same way. So John told me to ask you about him, John Westbrook. He said, ask Charles. Do you know him, John?
I do. I do.
He said, ask him about me. And so I'm going to leave you on that note because it looked like you want to say something about John.
Yeah. I didn't really know who John Westbrook was. I saw him at different events working with the conference office. So I didn't know who he was until I knew who he was. And I know what he's talking about. So when he worked for Alcorn now as director of athletic operations, but he was a director of operations for the SWAC office for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And a few years ago at the SWAC softball tournament, the SWAC does a great job in getting everything set up. So for us during the games, they got snacks and chips and stuff, and they got a couple of big coolers for drinks, water, Gatorade, whatever you want. So in between games, it's hot, I'm thirsty. I open up the cooler and I see this Gatorade, no sugar, whatever it's called, Gatorade Plus, whatever it is. So I grabbed it. I was like, okay, good. They got Gatorade. I know they got Coke products in there, but I just grabbed this big old Gatorade Plus. So John Westbrook comes up to me and says, hey, man, that Gatorade Plus you drank, that's what the commissioner drinks. So I drank what I did. I said, oh, my God, you got to be kidding me. So I felt awful about that.
So you took the commissioner's drink.
I took the commissioner's drink. I did. I mean, just as big as Dave, didn't even think about it. Did not blink. And so I apologized to Westbrook. I apologized to the commissioner. I said, Dr. McClellan, I'm so sorry. And so, he shook it off. But that's how I got to know John Westbrook. And so he's working in athletic operations here at Alcorn, does a magnificent job. He's all over the place, got a lot going on, and he does a good job with it. But that's how I got to know Westbrook. He came up to me and said, hey, man, that Gatorade you drunk, that belonged to the commissioner. I'm like, oh my God. So
wow.
I wonder is he going to deduct my pay with that Gatorade? But I apologized to him about it. So, that was a funny one right there. That was a regret right there. But you live and learn, Keisha. I lived and learned with that one.
That's so funny. Well,
crazy.
I will say thank you so much for joining me tonight, telling me your story. It has been a pleasure. It has been very funny, and I cannot wait to laugh with him about you drinking this Gatorade. Yeah. That is hilarious. But so what do you have coming up next? What's next for you?
We got a big game on Saturday. Jackson State comes in. It's a big game. You talked about the standings earlier. Jackson still has a shot at the regular season. I will say this is Bethune-Cookman's race to lose. Mm-hmm. Southern University, your alma mater, had a great opportunity to put pressure on them, but they lost the 17-point lead to Texas Southern, lost that game. And I think they lost a great opportunity to catch Bethune. So it's a big game for Jackson. Mm-hmm. Bethune has lost 2 in a row. Jackson's won a couple. So we can really put a dent in Jackson State's run, to try to get to the top of the standings. Bethune's got the Alabama teams coming in. I think that they may have enough to get to the finish line, but you never know. So that's what I got coming up. Basketball. And it's going to be interesting here this last couple weeks, because now you go from a Saturday, Monday regiment. The last 4 weeks are going to be Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, because the SWAC tournament starts on a Monday with all the teams in. So
all teams in.
So you're going to be busy. It's going to be a busy week in Atlanta. I'll be there that Sunday. And so I'm looking forward to all the games. But that's what I have coming up here. Just trying to get through basketball season, see where the Braves finish. Hope the Lady Braves can find a way. Alabama A&M on the women's side control that. They beat us in the only meeting. So they control the regular season. So we'll see what that looks like. But the Lady Braves are making them have to earn it. So we'll see how that goes. But I also want to say to you, Keisha, I really admire what you do. You do so much. I mean, it's not just sports. I mean, I follow you on social media. You're doing marathons and you're working with different organizations and you're donating your time. And so not only what you do in front of the camera, but what you do behind the scenes. I mean, what you do in front of the camera with your Black college experience, the NFL stuff, the Legacy Bowl stuff, the Dream, the roller derby. You're in the roller derby, and you're all over the place. You're all over the place, and somehow you keep it all organized. And I really admire what you do. You got a lot of irons in the fire, and you keep juggling all these different balls of these different shapes and sizes. And how you do it, I don't know, but I really admire what you do, because you do a whole heck of a lot in different circumstances.
Well, I thank you so much. I always say, I got to keep going. Like I have to keep doing something. And I think one of the things for me is because I know everybody's baseball, basketball, football. Those are our things, especially football, basketball. And so I feel like if I branch into something else, roller derby, which I'll make my debut with roller derby on next week. I'm super excited on the 28th. And so being able, no, I'm reporting. Absolutely cannot. I can skate. Yes, I can roller skate. Roller derby, absolutely not. But
okay, I'm asking Kia, because that's a part of. Are you gonna have to go out there with some skates on?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay. You don't want to see a 45-year-old falling down. Like it's already hard enough.
I don't want to see that.
But I'm super excited, and just going through the logistics and learning, just learning through it, and just being able to press through and just understand it it's really exciting to me. I'm super excited about it. So next week, because I'm headed to New Orleans tomorrow, I'm headed out for Legacy Bowl. And so, just to be able to press down and just go through a week of study, just to just get grounds. They're excited for me to come. I'm excited to go, but I'm like, yo, this is a different ball game. And much like hockey, you know how aggressive hockey is.
Yeah.
With roller derby, it's just you moving your hips, like you blocking people with your body. So, it's like football on skates, kind of, sort of.
But when it comes to the Legacy Bowl, you're probably one of the first, thinking here. Yeah, probably one of the first to do wall-to-wall coverage of it. Mm-hmm. That's something I think the NFL Network's doing some stuff. Of course, they're doing that. But in terms of the other stuff, you're all over it. And you're one of the few that's really doing it wall to wall like that.
Yep. I'm going to shoot in there tomorrow for their career fair. So this will be the first time at career fair. I'm excited about that, to see what that looks like. But yeah, I am. I'm excited to actually get down there, because I'm normally down there Saturday morning, coming back Sunday. So I've decided to go a day earlier, just to kind of get the logistics of what's going on at the college fair, to get some interviews and see what that experience is like for those students. And hopefully, some people get some jobs. A lot of people get some jobs. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you do a great job with that, and all the stuff that you do. I mean, being in Atlanta, and just it's so much going on. It's so much to do, and I think you do a good job keeping it all in front of you.
Thank you. So I look forward to seeing you when you come out here for the SWAC tournament. Listen, good luck to the Lady Braves. It is. I know they gonna really step it up, but good luck to the Lady Braves. And all of their success this season. Has been a great season. But I will see you when you get here.
I'll be there on Sunday, Keisha. As they say, I'll be there with bells on.
Well, until then, I always say it. Travel safe and be well, and I will talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.
All right. Good night.